Hello everybody, and in this video I am going to be playing as Brazil, and we're actually just going to be playing as the democratic Brazil, which usually the democratic path for most nations is kind of boring, to be honest. There are some countries like, the United Kingdom where you get the Commonwealth and stuff like that. That's a little interesting, but you don't usually expand too much. But with this Trial of Allegiance focus tree, you can actually do a lot. So we're actually going to do Aftermath of the Coffee Crisis first, mainly because I want to go down to the focus that allows us to deal with the Cangaço. And we're going to focus a lot on economy because most of our expansion is not going to be military based. It's actually just going to be through diplomacy and stuff. So I just want to, have a big factory count, because why not? And I'm going to put my dockyards on convoys, just because convoys are always useful for trade and stuff. And now with my army assigned to a field marshal, I am going to put them on the border with Peru, because we do have to puppet the two fascist countries in South America in order to, fully unite the continent. Now we're going to do Radio Nacional, and I'm going to hire the Department Nacional do Café, for our, I think it's industrial focus or whatever you call it. And now we're going to deal with the Cangaço, and we're finally ready to end the state of emergency and start going fully democratic. And it just costs some command power in order to deal with the Cangaço, so it isn't really that difficult to deal with them. You just have to wait. Now we're going to repeal the national security law, and I'm going to go with the federalism path of Brazil. I'm not sure which one's better, but it seems like the federalism path is at least economically better, I think. And now with Implement a National Guard finished, we're going to do End the Military Interference. And we're going to assign those new divisions to our army. And then we're going to open up political discourse. And I'm going to do some more economic focuses, mainly going for that extra research slot that you get by going down the nationalize the banks path. And the extra political power we got from the focus we just did, I am going to use we're going to switch over to free trade. And now I'm going to hire the captain of industry and the modern architect, just because I want a big factory count whenever we end this. And now I'm going to grab that extra research slot. And this was a little bit of a mistake. I did anti-fascist and anti-communist raids, when in reality I probably should have just banned one of the parties outright in order to get to the 60% support that I need to keep going down the focus tree. But in the meantime, we're going to do some of the coffee crisis focuses to try and get rid of what is the Brazilian version of the Great Depression. But here I realized my mistake with the raids, and I just banned communism in order to get over 60% support. So after doing stimulate the economy, we can address labor disputes. And I'm going to choose pro-labor policies just because I think it's a little bit better than not. Then we're going to do the international crisis, good neighbor policy, reach out to our neighbors, and I'm going to elect Lindolfo Collier. And this is important if you're playing along. You want to build a railway that connects the supply hub on the border of Peru to the rest of your supply hubs. Then we're going to do no fascism in South America, and now I'm going to start getting the democratic and non-aligned South American countries into our faction just by improving relations, and then spending the 20 political power it takes to invite them to the faction. And this just lets the faction grow pretty quickly, and my main goal is really just to get all of the non-aligned and democratic countries, specifically in South America. And with Paraguay and Argentina, we have made the faction as big as it can get, at least in South America. I could invite Central American countries, but I don't believe that you can annex them through the focus tree like you can the South American countries. But now, with no fascism in South America completed, we have a war goal on Peru and Venezuela. And I'm also going to do South American joint military exercises, just for the extra bonus to our troops, and because we need to do it anyways in order to annex these countries. But the war with Peru, there's not really much to say. We just outnumber them by a lot. It's still the beginning of the game, so they haven't spanned out like 40 divisions, so they're pretty easy to deal with. Now we're going to Latin American Research Council, which is mostly going to have an economic effect rather than a research effect. And like I said, mostly an economic effect because a lot of the countries in our faction just straight up refuse. And now we're going to do the United States of South America, which will allow us to annex our faction members that are in South America. Now, after the United States of South America is finished, there's not really any specific national focus that I need to do, but I am going to do national focuses that just improve our economy, and so mainly it will be focusing around that upper part of the focus tree that I just looked at. And now with the fall of Lima, we can puppet the entirety of Peru. And with Peru puppeted, we are going to go after Venezuela. And of course, we're going to connect the supply hub in Colombia to our supply in our actual country. And now it is time to call on our allies against Venezuela, and we are going to try and take them out. But I did make a little bit of a mistake in that my front line was a bit too long in the beginning of this war. So I fixed that front line size issue pretty quickly, just because the offensives just simply weren't working, and they really should have been because, again, we outnumber them a lot. So once I group up my troops way more, we're able to push pretty easily into Venezuela. And Argentina actually does a naval invasion, which failed, but it did allow us to get a little bit closer to the Venezuelan capital. And then the Chileans actually did an invasion, and so Venezuela just completely abandoned its capital, and shortly after they capitulated, meaning that we can puppet Venezuela. And that means we have all of the South American nations in our faction, which means we can annex all of them. As long as they have, I think, over 50 opinion of us. So that's not hard to achieve, considering we're in the same faction. I think there's only one country that I had to improve relations with. So yeah. But in the meantime, while we annex our faction members, I am going to just do economic focuses like we've been doing and switch over to partial mobilization. Basically just going to try and spam out as many factories as I can. So there goes Peru, and next will be Venezuela, and next will be Colombia. And Colombia accepts the ultimatum, so now we're going to go for Ecuador, then Paraguay, Bolivia, and now after Bolivia, we're going to go for Argentina. Actually meant to go for Uruguay, but, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter, we're going to annex them all anyways, but I just kind of wanted it to be like surrounding Argentina before you annex Argentina. Argentina was meant to be the last because they're the biggest, but whatever. Now we're going to integrate Chile, and now it is time to annex the last country, Uruguay. And they accept the ultimatum, and that leaves us with a pretty big economy. In 1940, we have 147 factories that are being counted by the factory count, but for whatever reason the factory count has not been super accurate recently, so we actually have more factories than 247. But that's a pretty big economy, considering we didn't even really do any major wars, and that actually leaves us as the third largest economy, and we haven't even built up the country. So if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. Any of those three helps the channel greatly. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.